Hello, Pastor. You and Jesus share something in common. It's called rejection. Rejection is perhaps the hottest of all crucibles because the pastor who loves people completely and deeply opens himself up to the pain of rejection. The sorrow of rejection was felt by Jesus. It was written, "He was despised and rejected by men." And because Jesus felt all the same human emotions that we feel, he was a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. John tells us that Jesus came into his own, and his own received him not. And that includes his family, his friends, his disciples, and his countrymen. Beyond Jesus, the greats of Scripture understood the sorrows of rejection too. Joseph was rejected by his brothers. Moses was rejected first by the Egyptians and then by the Hebrews. Jephthah was rejected by his family, and David was rejected by everyone. First his king, and then his captains. He was rejected by his wife and then his country. And after Paul was saved, think about it, he was rejected by the church and then by his Hebrew brethren, and eventually he was rejected by the Gentiles that he was called to serve. Historically, I know of no one who achieved greatness who first wasn't rejected, defamed, scoffed, or persecuted. Rejection is the price of influence. It will be no different with a pastor than it was with any historic figure. Pastors who are the most effective at presenting the gospel, they're the most persuasive at preaching and teaching truth, they're also the most often the ones who are the most rejected. My teaching pastor recently spoke about the rejection of Jesus, and he said, man's rejection did not destroy Jesus because man's approval did not define him. Too many people today are defined by the number of friends or followers that they get on social media or the number of likes that they get on Instagram. By nature, we are all people pleasers. And too often the thought is that the more people that we please, the more successful we are. And if that's the case, then Jesus, John the Baptist, Moses, and more were historically the greatest failures. Pastor, be careful to control your appetite for compliments after preaching a sermon, and keep yourself from growing too insecure when no one responds to a good message. Even worse, you might hear of someone who took your words wrong or maybe even right and became offended, and this criticism compels you to second guess your sermon delivery or your topic. When you preach, Pastor, preach to an audience of one. If you've been in ministry for a while, you're bound to hear of someone who hasn't returned to church because another pastor really brings it or speaks the truth, or, man, this pastor, he doesn't water it down, kind of suggesting that you do and that you're not worthy of their attendance. After years and sometimes decades of relationships, I've had close friends and ministry leaders walk away from my church without even saying a word to me. And then I find out later, usually through someone else, that they left to attend elsewhere. I've spent many hours alone with my Lord, asking Him to heal my soul before I once again begin to prepare my next sermon, fearing that it too will result in somebody else getting offended, a barb to my heart, and another rejection. But Pastor, rejection is something that I'm still not used to. And I'm not convinced I need to be either. A thorn carried inside of the heart of a pastor mysteriously makes him stronger and more courageous. He's dangerous to the devil, and he's far more reliant upon God. The wisest man who ever lived wrote, "Sorrow is better than laughter, for by a sad countenance the heart is made better." And that's what's dangerous to the devil. Rejection is never pleasant, but it nurtures your heart and it gives you the heart of Jesus. And in the end, that heart is worth all of the sorrow that it takes to acquire it.